Galapagos. After years and years of fangirling over nature documentaries, volunteering at the local wildlife sanctuaries, and a zoology degree later, I realized I needed a bigger change. And that change was a trip farther than I had ever gone before, solo that is. Freshly out of undergrad, I made the best decision of my life, to go volunteer abroad on the Galapagos Islands, with none other than my favorite animal, giant tortoises. I set up this grand adventure, with some strategic travel planning, to make my way over to one of the smaller inhabited islands, Isla Isabela, at this amazing breeding center for giant Galapagos tortoises. I realized quickly that my luggage choice wasn't the best choice, but I was already on my journey. 3 plane rides, an hour bus ride, and a 2-hour speedboat ride, and I had finally made it. I had some assistance and got some funny looks, as I dragged my luggage through the dirt road onto the flatbed truck to head down to the main city stretch. I was amazed at all the wildlife about. Sea lions napping on park benches, blue-footed boobies resting in large groups on large rock islands jutting out of the ocean, and black iguanas skittering away as you walk towards them on various pathways. I had arrived to my own type of paradise, not one people usually think of. As I learned, the city was run fully on diesel fuel and water was not potable like I was used to. The nights were comparably stunning. Going out for drinks at the beach bar Casa Rosada with my new friends as we bonded over our various excursions. Snorkeling, hiking, eating, and all about our profound love for all things animals and nature. We danced in the shallow crashing waves under the full moon and let our howls and screams to fully let go and provide thanks to our beloved Mother Earth. I never would have thought an experience like this would be so profound. Meeting other like-minded individuals, creating a lifelong bond filled with other adventures to beautiful lands. That experiencing life outside of the bubble created and sustained by your parents can be extremely eye-opening and grounding for your soul. Money is somewhat important, just needed to get by in life, however not meant to be life's main purpose. I spent about $2,100 to spend 5 weeks in the most amazing place I could imagine in the winter of 2016, with only a bedroom and bathroom provided along with 2 prepaid meals per day. The windows only had screens and you could not throw toilet paper in the toilet as the water pressure associated with plumbing was not as strong like those in America, instead had to throw it away in the trash can beside the toilet. All these interesting adjustments, giving insight to life away from my norm. During the early parts of the day, we would hike past the ponds where flamingos and iguanas resided to make our way to the tortoise breeding facility, El Centro de Crianza de Tortugas Gigantes, now renamed. Here we spent time raking up piles of poop, feeding out large stemmed plants, stems for adults and leafy tops for the babies and younger tortoises, and assisting the park's workers with a helping hand. This alternative to my own personal reality was exactly what I needed. Fast food didn't exist. Main food staples in each meal was a soup appetizer and for the main course some sort of protein in a sauce. I usually ordered the shrimp, with white rice, papas fritas, thick wedge potato fries, and a small fresh salad. Even better, always had a freshly squeezed juice to complement, my favorites being blackberry juice and mango. And can't forget about coconuts. Utilized for alcoholic drinks mixed with cognac, sugar-based rum, and when you're done to eat the delicious fleshy inside. After taking a few days to adjust to my personal room in the volunteer building, we had one night that the power lapsed. Island-wide blackout. I took this opportunity to try to pulpo, or octopus, on the menu at the restaurant I had my volunteer meal plan through. I figured it would probably be best to not fully be able to see what I was eating, as we had mere candlelight to illuminate our tables, and I'm sure what the cooks had to cook with in the back as well. A bit too chewy for my preference. But definitely worth trying. The island appeared so calm and spooky with no lights on for hundreds of miles in every direction. Wandering back to my room, I stopped at the beach nearby and found my eyes glued to the sky. I had never seen quite a scene like this before. In Ohio, and in much of the world, there is so much light pollution that you can only barely catch a glimpse of the stars and galaxies visible from our planet. Here though, I froze in amazement. I've never seen anything so beautiful, mesmerizing, and vast all in my life. Not only was the beach lit up by the moon and stars, but the swirls of the various galaxies as well. I wish I had a camera that could give justice to what I was seeing. I felt like I was standing there for an etter.
Barefoot in the grass, barefoot in the grass. Paul and Katie stood looking at the large silver plaque they had won, hanging proudly above the fireplace in the family home. Katie loved reading the inscription under their names. When most flock with the crowd, there are a few who dare to create a path of their own. Katie still couldn't believe their luck. It was 2 weeks earlier when they had won the prestigious award and the $10,000, which had paid off their parents' mortgage on the farm. They had sprinted to the finish line first and second, 50 yards ahead of any other competitor. The 2-kilometer track around the grassed racecourse had been a breeze to run on, but keeping ahead of the well-known competitors was a different matter. They had been running at a mild pace for most of the race, just keeping up with all the others. Then on the last lap they had sprinted ahead of them and kept the lead. The siblings had worked out their strategy for the race over the last few days, and after training alongside the others they knew their strengths and weaknesses. Their strategy had paid off. The crowd had at first gasped and gone very quiet, but then they burst into rapturous applause as they realized not only had the young siblings outran all the elite athletes, but they had also ran the race barefoot. They carried them on their shoulders to the podium to receive their plaque and the check, and they were whisked away to their motel, where they showered, changed, and went to a night at an expensive restaurant put on in their honor. The siblings watched in awe at all that was happening. They enjoyed the night out and the fantastic meal and thanked everyone for their generous well wishes. The next day they booked their flight back home. It was lovely being here, it was great to win the race and the money, but they were both homesick, and longed to be back on the family farm with their parents. Their parents had always urged them on, and now their mother was so proud she told everyone she met about her wonderful children. The siblings had kept every copy of the newspapers since the very beginning, when they had first entered the competition. The stories followed their journey from start to finish and nicknamed them the Barefoot Babes in the latest edition, but that had not always been the case. Early on when they had first entered, the people who ran the race wanted nothing to do with them. When they fronted up to the judges to sign up for the race, one thing they were asked was, "What sort of trainers will you be wearing?" "We don't wear trainers, we race barefoot," Paul answered. "You can't race without trainers. This is a prestigious city racing track, not an outback gravel road," they were told. Paul had made sure to read all the rules and regulations. "And where does it say that in the rules?" he asked. The judge gave him a glare and stomped off to speak to the others. After a lot of debate among the judges, they finally conceded that they were allowed to race barefoot and stamped their entries. As they trained on the beautiful, soft, lawn racing track for the next 3 days, the other competitors sneered and laughed at them, which only spurred them on to try harder, and made them more determined to win. They raced alongside the others, watching every movement and picking up anything which could help them win. They had enjoyed their trip to the city in the aeroplane and their week's stay in the expensive motel. They had even found time to go to the zoo and the museum and art gallery, but most of their time was spent at the track. They made sure they ate well and were in bed asleep by 10 p.m. every night, as they were up at 7 a.m. the next morning. When Katie had first seen the ad in the newspaper asking for competitors to sign up, they thought they had missed their chance, as the papers were always a few weeks late. Looking at the date of the race, they realized they had a month to sign up and train for the 2-kilometer race. Their parents had agreed the $10,000 prize would help them to keep the family farm, so had agreed to let them enter. They had firm belief that the siblings could win this race, and spent the last of their savings to book an aeroplane and pay for a few days at a motel. The siblings loved living on their parents' cattle farm in the small outback town. Their only communication with the outside world was a helicopter which arrived once a fortnight, bringing ordered groceries and supplies, and also any mail and newspapers or periodicals ordered. The small community of farmers and their families got together a few times a year, for Christmas church celebrations, a picnic on Christmas Day and sometimes a picnic race day. The race day included races for children, teens, adults and camels, as well as fun races for families. Most of the children went barefoot on the picnic days, and only wore shoes for special occasions like going to church, as they wore out too quickly on the hard red earth. Paul